How many acts are in a screenplay? Maybe you thought of a number, maybe you said as many as the story needs, or maybe you're a frequent viewer and are thinking, hey, I watched your previous videos, and I know Aristotle figured all that out over 2 millennia ago. A drama is that which has a beginning, a middle, and an end. 3 acts. Except he didn't really call them acts. What he does do is influence the Roman poet Horace, who more explicitly includes what we'd consider acts in Ars Poetica 3 centuries later. No play should be longer or shorter than 5 acts. Yeah, 5 acts. And that idea stuck for nearly 2,000 years. Even Shakespeare wrote his plays in 5 acts. It wasn't until the turn of the 20th century that the 3-act structure began to take center stage and was even put forward as the ideal scheme for a play in William Archer's 1912 playwriting guide, Playmaking. And as the craft of screenwriting developed around the same time, it borrowed heavily from playwriting, including the newly popular 3-act structure. But this paradigm shift didn't suddenly cheapen Shakespeare's work. In fact, it's pretty easy to just reframe his 5 acts as 3 because there is no strict definition of an act. It's some sort of major or primary division in a dramatic work, like a screenplay, but there's nothing about these divisions that makes them self-evident. They exist only because we've decided that certain things happen in certain acts, which is the exact reason you need to be familiar with the 3-act structure today, so you know which story beats are expected in which parts. And so that when someone says your first act is too long, or the second act lacks narrative momentum, or things fall apart in the 3rd act, you'll know what they're actually talking about. Act 1 is often called the setup and usually runs about 20 to 25 pages. In those pages, you'll need to introduce the world.
This is Burke. We have fishing, hunting, and a charming view of the sunsets. The only problems are the pests.
The main characters.
Oh, and that's Fish Legs, Snotlout, the twins, Rough Nut and Tough Nut, and
Dream.
Astrid.
And their goals. Pleading.
Oh, come on, let me out, please. I need to make my mark.
Somewhere in the middle of the act, you'll need an inciting incident, or catalyst, that upsets that world and sets the conflict of the story in motion for the protagonist.
I have brought down this.
It suddenly shifts. And at the end of the act, they'll need to commit themselves to that conflict in a point of no return.
Welcome to Dragon.
The recruits file through the gate.
No turning back.
Act 2 is sometimes called the confrontation, build, or rising action, and it's the longest of all 3 acts, usually coming in around 50 to 60 pages. You'll often hear that the 2nd act has the characters face the conflict with escalating stakes leading up to a climax in the 3rd act, but that's annoyingly vague. We'll get into some of the more detailed templates for filling in this act and the others in upcoming videos, but I still want to give you a few important points here. The first half of the 2nd act is going to show the audience how our protagonist is going to take on the conflict. If it's an action movie, we're going to see some action. When he first engages them, Hutch is unsure and a tad bit awkward. But with each movement, much like an old machine coming back to life, he finds his tempo and rhythm. A detective film? Hit us with some investigating.
So we got a trooper pull someone over. We got a shooting. These folks drive by. There's a high-speed pursuit. Ends here, and then this execution type deal.
A romance? Bring on that adorably awkward pursuit.
No, I mean, if it's fine with you, I'll be your date.
You'll be my date to my little sister's birthday party.
Then halfway through the act and our story, we hit the midpoint, where the stakes are raised significantly. This could be because something terrible happens. It gives us a taste of what we're really dealing with. Or it could be something good that leaves your characters with even more to lose. Like finding out your loved one is still alive,
우리 소환이에요? 괜찮대? 13호 화장실에 있대.
but knowing you'll have to go through a horde of zombies to get to them. And then we keep upping the stakes until the protagonist basically does lose, where winning seems impossible. She holds the recent blue memory of Riley in class. Joy hugs them all until the memories fall out of her arms. Joy cries, a long, deep, painful cry. Joy has lost everything. This is the low point. But it's also what fuels our protagonist to change or inspire others and figure out how they can snatch victory from the jaws of defeat.
Sadness. Mom and Dad, the team, they came to help because of sadness.
She turns to Bing Bong, ready to take action.
We have to get back up there.
This is our break into Act 3. Act 3 is often called the resolution or payoff. It's the last 25 pages or so and contains the big confrontation we've been building toward the entire film. It's the climax where our enlightened protagonist can finally overcome the conflict and achieve their goals.
I can't, Joy.
Yes, you can. Riley needs you.
Sadness looks at Joy. Really? Joy nods. Sadness works and ejects the idea bulb. The blackness retracts. Interior, bus, night. Feeling comes back to Riley. Her expression changes from listless to sad.
Stop! I want to get off!
Or more rarely, where they fail to change.
If you end your training now, if you choose the quick and easy path, as Vader did, you will become an agent of evil.
And suffer defeat themselves. Vader's sword comes down across Luke's right forearm, cutting off his hand and sending his sword flying. And sometimes we get a glimpse of how this achievement or failure changes their lives or even the world.
With Safina's magic expunged, Lord Neverember finally came to.
Lord Neverember bolts upright, waking with a gasp.
His first official act was to award the saviors of Neverwinter the Medal of Heroism. And to the Emerald Enclave, he granted formal protection of their people and their land.
Again, nothing inherent to these acts makes them acts. Even William Archer himself warned that the playwright should not let himself be constrained by the custom to force his theme into the arbitrary mold of a stated number of acts. They're only acts because we say they are, because we're taught they are by teachers and writers who were also taught them, which means they're much more of a language tool we can use to discuss film than a writing tool we can use to pen them. But the 3-act structure does still form the cornerstone of most of the more in-depth screenplay templates you'll need to become familiar with to make it easier to outline, write, and edit your screenplays. And that starts with watching this video on the classic story structure known as the hero's journey.